We do periodically our multicultural services. So it's Hispanic Heritage Month. We do a service kind of celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, not necessarily celebrating Hispanic heritage. I'll explain that to you in a second. We have Black History celebration during Black History Month. We have Asian Pacific Christian Jubilee during that month in May. It's a long title, and I don't want to get it wrong. And why does the United States, we as a nation celebrate these months? Why do we as a church celebrate these months, right? So you go, like, why? Right? Why? You know what, if you really think about it, the role is to actually inspire and empower and equip people from different backgrounds to say, wow, I can be of influence. You know, that I am important and that I can be helpful and that my presence here can make an impact. Does that make sense? And so that's what we have done traditionally over the last 2 decades. When we've done these types of services, we've highlighted the members to make sure they understand that you are here to make a positive impact, not only on our congregation, but on the world. So today, we're not going to be doing a lot of cultural stuff. We have a generation of members here that came into the church as college students, all right? That was almost 20 years ago. They are now full-fledged adults leading their own families, and they've gone on this incredible journey with kids. They're just barely coming out of their baby fog. And for the last few years, they might have been in their baby cocoons. And so in some ways, this service is a chance for them to kind of re-influence our church in a great way. And so the people that are going to be sharing are people who Rob and I have had the pleasure of being with since they were teenagers. And seeing them just grow and do incredible things and have incredible families, that's awesome. And then to close it out in the sharing will be one of our veteran foundational members, Alicia Mowberry, who has helped guide and strengthen these younger people. Now, you won't even tell. You'll go, oh, she just looks the same age as these other ones. But she is one of our veteran members. She came in as a college student as well, just a few years before they did. Not much difference at all. So today, I'm kind of like the MC. I'll read through the scriptures, kind of hit a point, and then allow some of our emerging who, through this moment, they get to be equipped and empowered to be of influence here on us, re-engaging in the way that they did when they were younger, and now coming up these days, they've been of increased influence in our church. So we are going to be covering Mark 9 and 10. And for those of you who have not been here for a while, we have been covering the book of Mark. And our series is called Remarkable. And we've been just kind of going right through the book, but today we're doing something a little different. We're going to be taking a look at a passage in Mark 9 and a passage in Mark 10 because they kind of cover a lot of the same things. So we'll look at Mark 10, verse 42. So Mark 10, verse 42, the Bible reads, "And Jesus called them to him and said to them, 'You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" You know, Jesus is describing true greatness here. And you go, well, why? Why is Jesus describing true greatness here? Because Jesus believes we all can be great. Because why? Anyone can serve. Anyone can serve. And he says here in verse 45, right? "For even the Son of not to be served, but to serve. Jesus is always willing, we're going to see, to set the pace for service. And Jesus' idea of greatness is just different from the world's idea of greatness. True greatness requires laying down your life, not puffing up your ego. I'm going to introduce Juan Maceo here, and he's going to share. Juan came into our church through our campus ministry. He is doing an incredible job. I don't know how much of his story he's going to tell, but he has his master's degree in educational psychology. He works as a counselor at El Camino College and at Santa Monica College. And he has been super instrumental in helping my son personally really move forward in his educational plan. So I really appreciate Juan. He and his wife, Christina, are truly part of our family. And so I'm going to have Juan come up and share about how Jesus' example of service gave him bigger dreams.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Juan. I'm one of the disciples, part of this amazing ministry here. And today I was asked to speak about how and when did it connect with me that Jesus believed I could be great. And for me, that happened when I learned and I had a conviction that he died for me. There's one thing knowing that Jesus died for the world. There's a difference between knowing that he died for me. And then as I was getting to know his character, and as I was reading the stories in the Bible, I saw how he laid down his life for others. And so for me, growing up, I grew up in a very rough home, okay? And so naturally, with the absence of my father, I grew up fighting to survive my environment. So I was used to fighting for all the wrong causes, right? But as I became a disciple, I started to learn what it meant to fight for not only the way that Jesus fought, but to fight for good causes. And so I wanted to get educated after getting out of the hood, right? And so I started to want to pursue something that was going to allow me to continue to fight for people. And so initially I thought that was to become a lawyer, right? Like Larry H. Park, I'm going to fight for you, right? Rest in peace. Now I think he died now, right? And so, but that wasn't it. So I kept on going. And then after a lot of consideration and thought about what I wanted to do for my life, I decided to fight for students to better themselves, right, and become great with their lives through education. And so now I'm a counselor, like Dave mentioned, at Santa Monica College and also at El Camino College. And now I get the blessing to serve anywhere from students that are formerly incarcerated to first-year students, to STEM students, to nursing students, and to see them transform themselves from young teenagers getting into college or just getting out of prison to transferring to great universities like USC, UCLA, or UC Irvine, or some of the great Cal States like Cal State Long Beach. It's an honor that I feel connected not only with my own faith and Jesus' faith, but it's a way for me to lay down my life for my students. So that's a little bit about myself. Thank
you. I would say, amazing amount of growth that I've seen Juan exhibit in his life would blow you away. When he was younger, all the way up till early adult, like mid-adulthood, yeah, he loved to fight. There was always a battle, a person to fight against. And to see him become someone who's always looking for who he can fight for, who he can build up, who he can empower. What an incredibly impressive journey. Let's go on in Mark chapter 9, verse 30. So we're going to move forward now to Mark chapter 9 in verse 30. They went on from there and passed through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand the saying and were afraid to ask. You know, the disciples just could not understand what this meant. They could not understand that greatness is going to come from great sacrifice, this heart to serve. See, they were too distracted by their fear. They were too distracted by their selfish ambition. But even though they were all that distracted by fear and selfish ambition, you know what they all felt inside? A call to greatness. They did. Because we actually all feel that no matter what we're struggling with in our flesh, in our hearts, we all feel a call to greatness. Let's go to Mark 9, verse 33. We see this here. And they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silent. On the way, they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. Right? They were struggling with that. See, we all feel a call to greatness, but we can get distracted. We can get distracted by a lot of things. And when you really think about it, when you were a little kid, you didn't go, "My dream is to sit at a desk. My dream is to embezzle or cheat someone." Little kids, they put on the cape because they want to be superheroes, right? Little kids, they think about, "I want to be an astronaut. I want to be this world-class athlete." In our hearts, there's this feeling that we are called to greatness. But we get distracted. We want to feel significant and valuable. But Satan distracts us by thinking that happens by worldly means. That happens by being selfishly ambitious, competitive, controlling, or better than. Many misunderstand greatness as exercising authority. But Jesus defines true greatness. He really does. That's the great thing about the journey that I saw Juan go through. True greatness is not going to come by bullying or fighting. It's going to come by empowering others and serving them. And so Jesus defined true greatness. And so the very thing that we just need to understand is we must imitate Jesus to be great. We must imitate to be great. We must imitate Jesus' example of sacrificial service. Let's go to Mark 9, verse 35. And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, "If anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all." That's what Jesus is saying. Hey, if you want to be first, you got to be last and servant of all. Now I'm going to have Jose Anguiano come up and talk about Jesus' example of service and how that example empowered him to imitate Jesus rather than repeat maybe some of the difficult role models that he had in his life that weren't so helpful. And I really appreciate Jose, once again, known these guys, he and his wife, since they were very young. And my wife and I, along with, we believe this about the Maceo family, we believe this about the Anguianos. They are family to us. And we've got to see them develop and grow in their humility, their confidence, and their love for one another. It's incredible. So Jose's going to talk about how he imitated Jesus rather than repeated a cycle. Okay. Come on, Jose.
Good morning. You guys hear me all right here? Yeah. Awesome. So today I'd like to share one of the impressive characteristics of God that's reflected in Jesus here in the lesson that Dave's talking about. And he's really talking about servitude. And in Psalms 23:3, you don't have to go there, just referencing, King David talks about God restoring his soul. And in Hebrews, it carries this idea of renewing, returning, reviving, and healing or reconciling his soul. Growing up without a father, I didn't have a clear example of what a sacrificial, serving, healthy father was like. You know, my dad abandoned me, my mom, my sister, and my 3 younger brothers. And I always felt like there was something missing growing up, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Recently, I've felt more alive than I've had in years. And in a long time, the moments I accredit it to the moments I spent with Farshad, with Darren McNeil, and Dave Kim. Farshad is giving me hope, and his example of following up with me has been super helpful. Darren, in our coaching times that we have with my wife, his understanding and asking us questions, making us feel understood, has really built up our marriage. For 17 years, Dave has been my greatest reference to a spiritual father that I've ever experienced. And my time is up. I was telling, I know, Dave's like, yeah. Long story short, I was telling Dave, we were hanging out at Denny's a few days ago. And, we were just chatting about how, I was telling him, you know what, I like the way we're doing church. This is really cool. I get to go out and have breakfast with Dave and talk about whatever's helpful and just hang out. To me, it's inspired me to continue to imitate my spiritual mentors and God's heart for servitude. Thank you for letting me share.
I really do appreciate Jose, not because he mentioned me, but I think you have to see him as a dad. and even see Juan as a dad, and these people who were kids now raising their kids, and the love, the joy, the intent, the attention, and the stress they are feeling about their kids. In some ways, never knowing if someone else felt that way about them. And then to see in the scriptures the heart of God, and to know this is how God feels about us. And then to give what God has given to them. And I know that they have had parents who love them, but we all go through our tough times. We as parents know that what we give is so much less than what we wished we could give. But I appreciate how they and so many other people will look to Jesus as an example rather than to look at their hurts as their example. And that's the application that I want us to have with this lesson. The example that Jesus set that we also should follow is that we need to embrace with grace. What we're going to see is when Jesus is talking about laying down his life, he is saying, I want you to walk this world embracing everyone and everything with grace. Let's go to Mark chapter 9, verse 36. Remember, just before this, he's saying, hey, you guys who are arguing about who's going to be number one, right? You guys who are playing, Hunger Games with my church. Game of Thrones with my word. Let me give you a visible example. Mark chapter 9, verse 36. And he took a child and put him in the midst of them. And taking him in his arms, he said to them, whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. Jesus said, hey, I'm going to embrace the children. I'm going to say, hey, the little people, you just ignore and say, hey, the adults are talking. These are the ones I'm going to focus on because I walk this earth to serve and I embrace with grace. Mark 9, verse 38, John said to him, Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us. Right? You can just picture, here's Jesus sitting with a little baby on his lap, and then John's all like, danger, danger, Will Robinson. He's like, hey, these bad guys aren't, they're using our name and they're not, following us. And you know what? In verse 39, but Jesus said, do not stop him. For no one who does a mighty work in my name will be able soon afterward to speak evil of me. For the one who is not against us is for us. See, even here, Jesus embraces the mistaken. The people who didn't quite get it right, but trying. He embraces them. He doesn't judge them. He says, yeah, stop. We don't want that poison hoodoo, stuff going around. They were all freaked out, but Jesus says, you know what? These guys, they're doing their best. They may not be right, but you can embrace the mistaken. You can embrace the people who are doing their best, although even their best can be a bit hurtful or hard to endure. We're going to have Esther Anguiano come up and share now. And Esther is going to share about how God's grace helped her to embrace how maybe she was raised, even though it was very difficult for her, but to embrace how she was raised and really embrace those who raised her with love and grace. Here's Esther.
Good morning, church. Does everyone can hear me? Yeah, okay, great. So I was born in Jiquilpan, Michoacan, in Mexico. My both parents brought me here. They're both immigrants as well as I was. And I grew up in a very rough time in my life. My dad was an alcoholic. Since he was a teen, he grew up in that hometown. It was for them natural to be, drinking young. My mom, when she brought us all here, she worked 2 jobs, to sustain, our lives. And we can have food and shelter and all that. And, and I'm the oldest of 4. So it's me, my brother, Caterino, my sister, Christabel, and my little brother, Mauricio. And so, growing up, I resented my parents, because there was a lot of activities at school that they missed. For me, I was in band for more than 10 years, and they weren't really there for me. And so I didn't really understand why they weren't there for me, And, there was a time in my life where I was a teenager, and I always wanted to take my life away because to me it was so stressful to just deal with that. And so God, I believe in God, but I didn't know exactly why God had all this, intentions in my life. And then, fast forward, when I was 18 or 19, I believe, Jose and I dated in the world, and Juan was our great friend. He worked with him, and he reached out to Jose. Jose studied the Bible. Then I studied the Bible, and that's where I learned God's grace. I understood how grace was all about, and I was able to show that to my parents, and my heart started getting softer. I studied the Bible with my mom and my dad. They renewed their vows, and then now my dad he passed away in 2014, and I just had a miracle in my life, and when I see that, it just brings happiness to my heart. So thank you so much for letting me share.
Once again, you're only hearing little snippets, and if you could and I encourage you all to spend time with the people that you see and hear sharing, because so much depth to their stories. I didn't coach them much at all, in their speaking, and I said, I know you 4, I trust you 4, you won't go long, and they're going way shorter than I thought would be long. So I'm sitting there getting into the story, and then, done. So you got to hear more. This was just a trailer. But yes, Esther's heart to love and to really see the good in the struggles that their parents were having is incredibly powerful. because it does make a ripple effect, and it did make a ripple effect in the family's lives. So I appreciate Esther really underselling all her faith. But no, she's awesome. Let's go to Mark 9, verse 41. Jesus says, "For truly I say to you, whoever gives a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ will by no means lose his reward." And in verse 32, Jesus says, "And they were on the road going up to Jerusalem. And Jesus was walking ahead of them, and they were amazed, for those who followed were afraid. And taking the 12 again, he began to tell them what was to happen to him, saying, See, we are going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him over to the Gentiles. And they will mock him and spit on him and flog him and kill him. And after 3 days, he will rise." We're talking about embraced with grace. Jesus would embrace the children with grace. He would embrace the mistaken with grace. But the biggest thing he embraced with grace is his journey. His journey to the cross. And here he's getting more graphic. He's saying, this is what I will endure. I'll be flogged. I'll be spit upon. I'll be killed. And he just knows this is the way to greatness. This is the journey to greatness. The journey of grace is the road of love in the face of persecution, in the face of pain. Let's go to Mark chapter 10, verse 38. "And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him, and he said to him, 'Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you.' And he said to them, 'What do you want me to do for you?' And they said to him, 'Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. That way we can tell the other disciples, we were the greatest. Drop the mic.'" In summary, right? We see this again. We just all feel that call to greatness. Look at the context. Jesus sits the young child, says, hey, he says you got to be a servant. Hey, and these guys run up to him. Okay, yeah, I heard what you said to them, but you know we're the ones who are supposed to be the greatest, right? He does not rebuke them. He equips and he empowers them. He gets them to self-reflect, we're going to see. And he says he believes they can be great. Verse 38. Jesus said to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism which I am baptized?" And they said to him, "We're able." And Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized." See, he emphasizes that, once again, we must imitate to be great. And he says, yes, I believe you will get there. Isn't that the heart of Jesus right there? You feel that inner call that you're meant for more than what you're settling for right now. And Jesus says, yes, that can happen. But he also says this mysterious thing I'm going to explain to you. Doesn't have much to do with the lesson, but we're covering Mark. We might as well just get in the nitty-gritty. In verse 40. "But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." You know, a lot of people, they go, what does that mean? Does Jesus have these mysterious seats with people's names written on them that either have been born or yet to be born, right? And you're just wondering, am I? Do I have that? Do I have a seat reserved? And some will teach you, some denominations, they believe those positions are pre-selected. And you know, you're born and doesn't matter. Sorry. Can't get in. Others will believe that they'll tell you that Jesus did not know because he says, I don't know. Because at this time he was in the flesh, and then God knew because God was in heaven, and you know, Jesus being in the flesh, he couldn't figure that out. But I'm going to give you another way of looking at it. You know, you want to hear another way? Yes. All right, let's go to Ephesians 2, verse 10. It says here in verse 10, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." So God has all this goodness he wants us to do, and he's prepared that for us. Did you know that? When you walk out of the door today, there's goodness prepared for you to do. When this service ends, look around and see, is there someone here that God prepared you to do goodness for? Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10. It says, "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil." So, on Judgment Day, you're going to receive what you're due for what you've done, good or evil. All right, now you go, okay, well, how does this all add up? I'm glad you asked. This whole idea is simply that when Jesus was saying that, he was just saying, you got to imitate to be great. You see, there are works of service prepared for us beforehand. And those positions are prepared for those who do the service. Now, who chooses to do those works of service? The preparation beforehand is not the specific names of the people. The preparation beforehand is the opportunities to serve. And those seats are prepared for those who take advantage of those opportunities. Those positions are not those, like predestined. They're those for those who choose to do the work that was prepared. That's why Jesus does not know. Because guess what? We choose. What we do will affect who gets to sit there. Logically speaking, feeling closer to Jesus, getting that seat closer to Jesus, just happens when we serve like Jesus. You get way closer to people when you do what they do. Does that make sense? You can feel way closer to people when you do what they do. I am an early bird. My son and my wife are late birds. As I'm falling asleep, I am hearing them crack up. I go to bed with hearing these two people, ah ha ha, whoa ho ho ho. And I'm missing out as the darkness and the waves of slumber come upon me. If I don't do, so there are some times, well, I'll eke it out and I'll just sit there, but I can't even really enjoy it because I'm like, I don't get closer. I don't enjoy that moment if I'm not doing what they do. That's it. And literally, the seats that have been prepared in advance are for those who choose to do what Jesus does. And so to kind of end us out, we'll have Lisa share in a second. When you choose to embrace with grace and to imitate Jesus, I just want you to know what Jesus is saying you will experience. Mark 10, verse 41. Mark 10, verse 31, and the point is, you'll enjoy first-class service. When you embrace with grace, when you imitate Jesus, you're going to enjoy first-class service. Now, Mark 10, verse 41, the people were kind of upset with James and John. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. They were like, hey, how dare you ask that of Jesus? We were the ones who were supposed to be first. Verse 42. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. Does this sound familiar? That's the first passage we read. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. God will make first those who serve. That's all he says. You will be first when you choose to serve. That is true greatness. When you experience or see or understand Jesus' first-class service and you imitate that first-class service, you get to sit first class in heaven. Isn't that an awesome thought? Jesus will bump you up to first class because you were loading all the luggage into the plane. Alicia is now going to close us out, and then I'll just say a few comments. She's going to talk about Alicia Mowberry, awesome, foundational pillar member of our church. And get to know Alicia. She has a strength as well as a kindness that is so amazing. And Alicia is going to talk about how experiencing someone else's first-class service helped her to understand Jesus' first-class service and inspired her to give as well.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to read. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I was born in a little mountain town in Michoacan, Mexico, and my family immigrated here when I was 5 years old. As many immigrants, my parents worked very hard to provide for us, and I learned the value of service from them. My dad's here today, Alfredo. He's 81 years old, still works full-time, and he's always helping somebody. He has chickens that he takes care of, always doing these odd jobs for his brothers or anybody that needs something. He makes these little tables for us. I mean, he's always doing something, so that's my dad. My mom is not with us today. She passed away in 2020. I'm going to share a little bit about her today. While living, she sacrificed herself wholeheartely for us, for her family, for myself, my 6 siblings. She took care of so many kids, I can't even tell you, and she also kept in touch with her nieces, nephews. She loved children. She had a really big heart for children. She stopped working when my oldest daughter, Diana was born, and she cared for her and my other 2 children from the time they were born. And also, my brother raised 3 children from the time they were born, and any other grandchild that she can get her hands on. She worked tirelessly. Her love was unmatched. She had a lot of illnesses and was in constant pain, but she served. She cooked our favorite meals on special occasions, and just because. One of the things that I remember is when I was finishing elementary school, she worked, I think she worked 2 jobs at the time, but she stayed up all night making a dress for me. And I was going to be a presenter during that. During the graduation. I really wanted her to be there. I wanted my parents to be there. And I, as Esther mentioned, like, we can be resentful. I was sad, but, as I grew up, as I became a mom, as I matured, as I became a disciple, I realized that my parents' sacrifice, my mom's sacrifice, really helped me understand Jesus' sacrifice, Jesus' love, and it really gave me something tangible to hold on to. And her love really taught me the meaning of God's love. Thank you.
So I hope you appreciate hearing everyone's story, and just the idea that service matters. And service is what really makes us great. Not the title, not the pocketbook, not the praise, but even when, and you feel it sometimes as a parent, you might be slaving away but the kids may not even understand what you're going through or what you're doing. Or you are with your friends and you're giving and you're sacrificing, and they may not understand all that you're doing. But God sees it. And there's a ripple effect, and there's a power, and there's a greatness. And so, literally, as I look at these passages in Mark 9 and Mark 10, I want us all to remember true greatness lies in the heart and the character of Christ. And if we could just imitate him and embrace with the same grace that he does, we will get a taste of the greatness that God has always planned for us. So we're going to have a song right now, and then Gustavo will lead us in the Lord's Supper.
Hola a todos, again. So, as we move to communion, I want to think about the cross and how through the cross, not only do we get salvation, right, but we also get to see an example or the example of true greatness. Through him, just bleeding in the cross and sacrificing his own life, laying down his life for the kingdom, for us, for the church, we get to see true greatness. And that is amazing, right? I was thinking how, the world has many recipes of greatness. There's books and books and books about how to be great. I think there's Awaken the Giant, There's books in mastery. There's so many different recipes and books and ideas. But and you might learn something from that. But I think the true way to change our life is through imitating Christ. That's the only thing that brings fulfillment. And I was thinking about Dave's scripture, he talks about how God has works prepared for us. Because he knows that there's something that it'll buy with us, and we'll connect, and we'll be able to serve that, and so be fulfilled through service. And I was thinking how different the world would be right now. We all looked at Jesus' example of greatness. As we go through just craziness and evil and just so much. If we would all just learn a little bit about the cross and what true greatness is, it would be a different world. So let us bow our head and pray for the communion. God, thank you so much for your example of greatness, for your example of servanthood, and how through that, and only through that, can we achieve greatness and fulfillment in life. God, help us all every day to just be more like Jesus, even as we lay down our lives. Help us be an example to the world on how to be more like Jesus. And so bring about your kingdom in the world. We love you so much. We thank you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.